They came to my house pretending to be HOA enforcers. One of them hit my 15-year-old daughter across the face. She got severe bruises. These fake officials had been scaring families in our county for months. They hid behind fake badges and made up rules. But this time they picked the wrong house. I had something to show them that made them run. To watch the full video, please comment down from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. It was a quiet Saturday morning in our neighborhood. I love these peaceful mornings, birds singing, someone cutting grass nearby, dogs barking sometimes. Just a normal, peaceful day. I was in my garage fixing an old generator. My hands were covered in grease and I was sweating, but I didn't mind. Working with my hands always makes me feel calm. After my wife Sarah passed away 3 years ago, these simple tasks became my therapy. Fixing broken things gave me control when everything else felt out of control. The generator had been giving us trouble since the big storm last winter. It would run for an hour, then sputter and die just when we needed it most. Emma had been doing homework by flashlight during the last power outage, and I promised her I'd get it working properly before the next storm season. A promise to Emma was a promise I wouldn't break. My daughter Emma was in the front yard watering flowers. Even though she's a teenager, she still loves gardening. She was wearing her old blue cap, humming as she moved between the flower beds. The garden is her special place. She takes care of those plants like they're precious. She got that from her mother. Sarah could make anything grow. After we lost her to cancer, Emma took over the garden like it was her sacred duty. Sometimes when she's out there with dirt on her knees and that focused look on her face, she looks so much like her mother it makes my heart ache. We have a big American flag in our yard. It's a bit faded, but it means everything to us. We put it up after my brother died. He was a soldier who served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Mark was 4 years younger than me but twice as brave. When the officers came to tell us he wasn't coming home, Emma was only 9. She stood straight and tall at the funeral, refusing to cry until we got home. The next day she asked if we could put up a flag for Uncle Mark. The biggest one they make, she said. So that's what we did. Emma always said nobody could tell us to take it down. It was for him and it would stay there. The neighborhood had changed over the years. New houses, new families, new rules. Most of our original neighbors had moved away. The old Oak Hills community didn't have an HOA when we first built our house. We liked it that way. But the new development across the street came with fancy houses and fancier restrictions. Those people kept trying to get everyone to join their homeowners association. We always politely declined. That Saturday started like any other. The kind of day you don't remember until something happens to burn it into your memory forever. Then everything changed. Someone pounded on our front door. It wasn't a normal knock. It was loud, demanding, like someone who thought they had power over us. 3 hard knocks, a pause, then 3 more, even louder. Emma looked up from her flowers, confused. She put down the hose and walked toward the door. I didn't hear it clearly at first because of the fan in the garage. The knocking came again, even louder. Emma opened the door politely, the way she always does. I taught her that courtesy doesn't cost anything, but it matters. She was raised to respect people, especially adults. Maybe that's why she opened the door wide instead of just peeking through it first. I heard her scream. It wasn't words, just a sudden cry that made my heart stop. I dropped my tools and ran toward the house. Something in that sound took me back to the day she fell off her bike and broke her arm when she was 7. The same raw pain and surprise. Something was wrong. Very wrong. When I got to the front door, I saw Emma standing there, her hand on her cheek, tears in her eyes. 2 men stood on our porch. They weren't real officials, but they were dressed to look like they were. Navy blue shirts with patches, khaki pants, black boots. The patches said Community Enforcement Division, with some fake-looking emblem. The shorter man had a clipboard and looked like he was trying to seem important. His face was round with small, close-set eyes that darted around like he was looking for something to criticize. The taller one stood slightly back, staring at Emma in a way that made my blood boil. He was thin but wiry, with arms crossed over his chest and a smirk that said he enjoyed making people uncomfortable. "Is this your daughter?" the shorter one asked me quickly. "We're from your HOA," he continued before I could answer. "We've received complaints about that oversized flagpole. It breaks Section 7 of your HOA code, too tall and blocking views." I stepped between them and Emma. "We don't belong to any HOA," I said firmly. "Never have." The shorter man's face tightened. He tapped his clipboard with a pen. "Your property was automatically enrolled when the new zoning regulations passed last month. Perhaps you didn't read your mail carefully." He spoke like he was talking to a child. "The flag violates our height restrictions, view obstruction rules, and community visual harmony guidelines. Visual harmony? I almost laughed. It sounded made up like something from a bad movie. Emma spoke up from behind me, her voice shaking. The flag? It's for my uncle. He died serving our country. We've had it up since the day we got the news. The taller man suddenly stepped forward, pushing past me. He didn't yell or argue. He just moved and slapped Emma across the face. The sound wasn't loud, but it changed everything. Emma stumbled back, shocked. Her hand flew to her cheek, her eyes wide with disbelief. Enough with the excuses, the tall man said coldly. Rules are rules. We've had enough of people thinking they're special. Time seemed to freeze. I didn't yell. I didn't charge at them. I just looked at my daughter's face, at the red mark forming on her cheek, at her trembling hands. She wasn't crying, but her eyes found mine, silently asking if what just happened was real. Her bottom lip was starting to swell slightly. In that moment I felt something shift inside me. Not rage, though that was there too, buried deep. This was colder, more focused. This was a line being crossed that could never be uncrossed. Emma, I said quietly, go to the kitchen. She hesitated, then nodded and walked inside, still holding her cheek. The shorter man held up some kind of ID card in a plastic holder. We're authorized enforcement under HOA regulations, he said like he was doing me a favor. This is your first and final warning. The flag comes down by Monday, or there will be a $500 daily fine, plus additional penalties. I didn't respond. I just looked at them. Really looked. Their badges had no numbers. Their patches didn't match any official agency. Their clipboards had papers that looked important but said nothing. These men weren't just bending rules, they were making them up. I stepped back inside without a word, closed the door quietly and walked through my house. Past the family photos. Past Emma's school awards. Past the picture of my brother in his uniform. I went to my study and knelt in front of an oak cabinet. I unlocked the bottom drawer with a key I always carry but rarely use. Inside was my hunting rifle wrapped in cloth. I hadn't touched it in over a year, not since Mark's friends invited me on their annual deer hunt. I unwrapped it carefully, checking that everything was in order. The weight of it felt familiar in my hands. This wasn't about threatening anyone. This was about sending a message that some lines can't be crossed. I checked it carefully, put it over my shoulder and walked back to the front door. Each step was calm, measured, certain. I walked past Emma in the kitchen, her eyes wide with question. Stay inside, I said gently. I'll handle this. When I opened the door again, everything outside had changed. The wind had stopped. The birds were quiet. Even the neighbors' lawn mowers had gone silent, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. The two men were still there, but their faces changed when they saw the rifle. All their fake confidence drained away instantly. The shorter one took a small step back. The taller one's eyes fixed on the weapon, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. I didn't point the rifle at them. I didn't need to. Just having it on my shoulder was enough. I wasn't making threats. I was making a statement. You've got 5 seconds, I said quietly. Start walking. I didn't shout or threaten. But something in my voice told them I wasn't joking. Maybe it was the same tone I used when I was a foreman at the construction company, the one that made even the toughest workers straighten up and listen. The taller man moved first. His arrogance disappeared like water down a drain. He stepped back, then turned and hurried toward their silver SUV parked at the curb. His shoes crunched on the gravel as he walked, then jogged, looking anywhere but at me. The shorter one tried to speak, his mouth opening and closing. He raised his hand slightly, like he was going to flash his fake badge again. But when his eyes landed on the rifle, he forgot whatever he was going to say. The clipboard slipped from his fingers and clattered on the porch. He left it there as he backed away, then followed his partner to the car. They drove away fast, tires squealing on the hot asphalt. They didn't look back. Their exit wasn't dignified, it was desperate, the kind of retreat that feels like victory to the one standing their ground. I stood there watching until their car disappeared around the corner. Only then did I take a deep breath. Not from relief but from resolve. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The front door opened behind me. Emma came out onto the porch, one hand still on her cheek. She looked at me, then at the empty driveway, then at the clipboard on the ground. Her eyes were dry now, but serious in a way no 15-year-old's eyes should have to be. Are we in trouble? She asked quietly. I lowered the rifle and turned to her. No, honey. They are. I put my arm around her shoulders. Let's call the sheriff, I said calmly. We're going to do this right. There was no anger in my voice, just determination. This wasn't just about Emma or our flag anymore. It was about making sure these men never knocked on anyone else's door again. It was about standing up when standing up matters. I picked up the clipboard from the porch. It had official-looking forms with our address already filled in. Violation notices, fine schedules, even a payment form with a P.O. box address. It was detailed enough to fool most people. That's what made me the angriest. How many others had fallen for this? How many people had paid money out of fear or confusion? Inside, I made Emma an ice pack for her cheek while I called Sheriff Wilson. I'd known Tom Wilson since high school. He wasn't just the county sheriff, he was a good man who took his job seriously. When I told him what happened, his voice changed. "Don't touch anything," he said. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. While we waited, I pulled the security footage from our porch camera. After a break-in down the street last year, I'd installed cameras around the house. Nothing fancy, just enough to see who comes and goes. Thank God I did. I downloaded the video to a USB drive, every second from their first knock to their hasty escape. The footage was clear, the sound crisp. You could hear the slap. You could see Emma stumble. You could watch me close the door, then return with the rifle. There would be no he said, she said. Just truth, recorded in high definition. Sheriff Wilson arrived in 12 minutes, not 15. His cruiser pulled up without sirens, but he wasn't wasting time either. He nodded to Emma as he came in, his eyes taking in her swollen cheek with a professional's assessment. "You okay, kiddo?" he asked her. She nodded. "I'm fine, Sheriff Wilson. Dad took care of it." "I bet he did," the sheriff said, giving me a knowing look. Then, more seriously, "Let's see what you've got." We sat at the dining room table, laptop open between us. I plugged in the USB drive, and the small light blinked steadily as the files loaded. I didn't say anything, just hit play and let the video speak for itself. The sheriff watched in complete silence, his face growing darker with each passing second. His jaw tightened when Emma was slapped. His eyes narrowed when the fake badges were flashed. "Pause it," he said suddenly, leaning closer to the screen. "That's Tate Howerin," he said, pointing to the shorter man. "He used to run a shady tow truck business over in Ridgemont. Lost his license for charging people unfair fees and holding vehicles hostage. Thought he'd left the county." He pointed to the taller one. "And that's Ross Deakins. He's been Tate's shadow since high school. Bad news, both of them. They're not HOA officials," the sheriff continued, leaning back in his chair. "They're not anything, no business, no legal authority, no permits. Just pretending." "How long has this been going on?" I asked. Sheriff Wilson rubbed his chin. "We've had scattered reports about men like this," he said, "harassing people and claiming to be compliance officers. Always vague complaints about property violations, just believable enough to scare people into paying up." His eyes hardened. "But no one ever got it on video until now." Emma stood nearby, arms crossed tightly, listening to every word. The mark on her cheek was still red, but her eyes now showed determination instead of fear. "They went after the wrong house," I said quietly. The sheriff nodded. "Yeah, and they just made the biggest mistake of their lives." He stood up. "I'm going to need statements from both of you, and I'll need a copy of that video." I handed him the USB drive. "Already made a copy. It's all yours." He pocketed it, then his radio crackled. He stepped outside to respond, and I could hear him calling for additional units and filing a bolo be on the lookout for both men and their vehicle. When he came back inside, his manner had changed from friend to official. "I'm treating this as assault on a minor, impersonation of officials, attempted fraud, and possibly extortion depending on how many others we find." He looked at Emma. "I'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow with your dad to make a formal statement. We'll take pictures of your injury too for evidence." Emma straightened up. "I'll be there, sir." After Sheriff Wilson left, Emma and I sat on the porch swing. The day felt different now, charged with something that wasn't there before. She leaned against my shoulder the way she used to when she was little. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked. I put my arm around her. "No, honey. They know better now. Why would they do that? Just go around hurting people and taking their money?" Was a good question. The kind that makes you realize your kids are growing up and seeing the world with clear eyes. "Some people think power is something you can fake," I said. "They think if they act important and scary enough they can make others feel small. And it works sometimes because good people don't want trouble. But sooner or later, those kind of bullies run into someone who isn't afraid to stand up." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm glad that was us," she finally said. I looked at her, surprised. Most kids would be upset, afraid. But Emma has always been different. Stronger than she knows. "Me too," I said and meant it. Within 2 days the story spread through our community. Not through news or social media, but by word of mouth, the strongest kind of news in a small town. A neighbor stopped Emma during her walk and whispered, "I saw the video. Those same men came to our house last month. Said our mailbox was the wrong color. We paid them $200 because we didn't know what else to do." Mrs. Grayson from the corner house brought over a blueberry pie. While I made coffee, she told me they'd paid $350 when the same men threatened to report their fence height to the county board. More people came forward from all over the county. Same two men, same fake uniforms, same threats about community rules. Some people were told their lawn was too long. Others that their porch lights were wrong. One elderly couple had paid nearly $1,000 when threatened with non-compliance fees for their holiday decorations staying up too long. Most people just paid to avoid trouble. Until me. The sheriff's office was flooded with new leads, statements, photos, even blurry doorbell camera footage. In just 48 hours, it became clear this wasn't one isolated incident. It was a pattern of intimidation that had been going on for at least 6 months. By Wednesday, the local paper ran a front-page story: HOA scammers preyed on dozens of county residents. They didn't name Emma, just referred to her as a minor who was assaulted during one confrontation. Within a week, both men were arrested. The shorter one, Aaron, was caught at a gas station near Spokane. Deakins, the taller one who had slapped Emma, was stopped near the state border. He had shaved his head and thrown away his fake uniform, but it was too late. They found over $14,000 in cash in their car, along with notebooks containing addresses, violation fees collected, and potential new targets. News channels called it the HOA imposter scam. Local radio wanted interviews. Even a national podcast reached out to tell our story. A reporter showed up at our door with a cameraman, asking for an exclusive. I declined every time. "This isn't about going viral," I told a deputy who thanked me. "It's about making sure people like that can't hurt families and just walk away." The district attorney called me himself to say they were charging both men with multiple felonies: assault on a minor, fraud, impersonating officials, extortion, and conspiracy. With the video and all the other victims coming forward, they'll be lucky to see daylight before retirement age, he told me. But the legal process wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was what happened in our community. Emma's bruise faded within days, the swelling around her cheekbone disappeared almost as quickly as it came. But something in her changed. It wasn't fear or anger, it was strength. A quiet, unshakable confidence that might have always been there, just waiting to be tested. Without telling me, she ordered a new flag online. When the delivery truck arrived with a large cardboard tube and a long metal case, she just smiled and handed me a wrench. "What's this?" I asked. "Uncle Mark deserves better than a faded flag," she said simply. The new flag was massive, bright, bold, unapologetic. 10 feet by 15, the stars and stripes stretched wide across our yard. The pole was stronger too, aluminum and weather-treated, reinforced at the base. We spent the afternoon installing it together. No contractors, no hired hands, just father and daughter under the open sky. By sunset it was up. When the wind picked up, the flag snapped through the air like it had something important to say. Neighbors noticed. Some honked approval as they drove by. Others stopped to share their own stories of encounters with the fake officials. Their fears seemed smaller now. Mrs. Grayson brought over another pie. Mr. Delaney from down the street offered to help paint our fence. People who had barely spoken to each other in years were suddenly a community again. Emma didn't talk much about what happened. She didn't need to. The flag said everything. It wasn't just a tribute anymore, it was a statement. I never touched the rifle again after that day, but I kept it clean and properly stored. Not out of fear, but out of principle. It wasn't about the weapon. It was about the line we had drawn. This is our home and we protect what matters. The weeks passed and life went back to normal. Or a new normal anyway. Emma started her sophomore year. I went back to work. The story made a few headlines in regional papers, then disappeared beneath newer news. But in certain households, in certain neighborhoods, people remembered. And they would keep remembering. About a month later, I checked the mail and found a small cream-colored envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from a woman across town. Her teenage son had been approached by the same two men who claimed his bike violated some community code. But her son had seen our story online, recognized the men, and ran inside to tell his mother. She called the sheriff that same evening. "What you did gave the rest of us permission to stand up," her letter said. "You didn't just protect your daughter. You protected all of us. Thank you for standing up when it mattered." I showed the letter to Emma that evening. We sat on the porch watching the flag move gently in the breeze, lit by the small ground lamp below. The stars seemed especially bright that night. After a while, Emma broke the silence. Do you think they'll ever try something like that again? People like those men? I took a sip of coffee and thought about it. Maybe somewhere else. But not here. How can you be sure? I smiled. Because now everyone's watching. Now everyone knows they can say no. She nodded, understanding. It's like that quote Uncle Mark had on his wall, "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." That's exactly right. We sat quietly after that, watching the flag wave against the night sky. There was nothing more to say. Some lessons don't need words. Some victories are measured in peaceful nights and communities that look out for each other. Those two men learned firsthand that fake power doesn't last. When you wear a badge that isn't yours and raise your hand against someone's child, justice finds you. Even if it doesn't knock first.